All right, everyone, I think we can get started now. So I just wanted to start by welcoming you all to our Lenovo, Intel, and Microsoft webinar. We have two amazing speakers with us today. We have Rob McGilvery from Microsoft and Rachel Munley from Intel, who will be speaking with you about Lenovo's Think PC line and exploring what Windows 11 on Lenovo devices can do for you and your business. So we will have time at the end for questions. So if you can hold any questions until that time or throw them into the chat, either works. Yeah, and with that, I will pass it over to Rob to start us off.
All right. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. As I mentioned, my name is Rob Gilvery. I'm the American Specialist for Windows Professional and Modern Endpoints here at Microsoft, and just super excited to talk to you a little bit today about Windows 11. You may have seen some announcements last week at our launch event in New York, and we will touch on some of those new innovations in the Windows 11 ecosystem today as well. But to start, really just wanted to kind of start around, how we know that customers are really just trying to, balance priorities. When we surveyed some IT and security decision makers, we know that, 43% of them said that security is still a top priority within their organization. We also know that 86% of those surveyed agree that new modern hardware will help protect against these new evolving threats that we're seeing in the market. We also know that with organizations we surveyed, that 60% still have some workers working in hybrid work. And so this is kind of the new normal of the way we're working as we come out post-pandemic and get back to a more stable kind of working environment. But then we also know that greater than 70% of business leaders, so those out of IT, realize that the quality and the performance of devices need to increase to really help support their organization to be more productive and be more competitive. We also know that there's this rising importance around AI in the workplace. And so I'm going to be very transparent here. When I first read this slide from the Work Health Index back in May, I actually agree with a lot of this. Right? There's distraction. I feel there's not enough focus time during the day, especially with just back-to-back meetings. Some days we were actually talking about that earlier. How it just feels like sometimes we're on back-to-back calls. And we do feel this kind of drain towards the end of the day. And we are looking, potentially for AI, to really help us, leverage this technology to whether it's, summarizing meetings or, helping us get the right answers a little bit quicker or helping us be more creative. And so we know there's this pressure and we know there's this rising importance of AI in the workplace. And we'll talk a little bit more about what we're bringing from an innovation perspective around AI here in a minute. What I really wanted to kind of hone in on, Windows 11 has been out for almost 2 years now. And, what can Windows 11 Pro and potentially Enterprise, if you have the licensing, do for your business? So we are seeing from a security perspective a 58% reduction in security costs between Windows 10 and 11 devices. And we'll talk about that a little bit more here in a minute. We also want to know that it's easy to manage. Like you can manage Windows 11 in your environment today the same way that you're managing Windows 10. You can use those same tools, whether you're in the cloud or potentially still on-prem with SCCM. And we also have a 99.7% app compatibility rate when we're moving from Windows 10 to 11. Also, user experiences and AI, those are really starting to kind of merge, into really the same category, right? Are we bringing the best user experiences to our end users, and are we helping our business be ready for AI when it really comes? And we'll talk about some of the things we just announced last week around AI and things that we're bringing into the Windows operating system and enhancements we're making from an AI perspective. We did a study with Forrester. I'm not going to go into too much detail. You'll see the study kind of throughout the presentation, but we did a study with Forrester back in December of 2022 on kind of what is that ROI for an organization that moves to Windows 11. And so we created a device calculator. We'll send this presentation out. We encourage you to visit this device calculator where you can go in and actually put in input of your own organization and actually get a customized output of what impact Windows 11 can make in your organization. In the assumptions with that impact, with the organization that we had, we saw potentially up to 250% ROI in 6 months in moving to Windows 11. So I wanted to spend a few minutes kind of in each one of these buckets as we go through the presentation today. First, just want to talk about security. So we have the most secure version of Windows ever. And when we launched Windows 11, we did raise that base hardware threshold to require things like TPM 2.0, so we could turn on VBS or HVCI, virtual-based security. And we could also look at leveraging types of products like Secure Core PC, or just really protecting the core of that device, making sure that we're protecting against some of these evolving threats. And that's where we're really seeing, that 58% reduction in security instances on a Windows 11 PC versus Windows 10. We also want to, leverage AI and leverage technology and advancements to really stay ahead of some of these evolving threats. We have things like enhanced phishing protection with Microsoft Defender Smart Screen. If your device supports it, we have presence sensing enhancements with Windows 11, where if you walk up to your PC, it's going to automatically wake it up. If you walk away from your PC, it's going to automatically lock it. I'll raise my hand here and say that's a bad behavior that I've established during COVID and working from home, as I now get up from my PC and don't hit the Windows L key anymore. And I've actually found myself when traveling that I've left my device unlocked. And so having, that technology in place to automatically lock that screen when it doesn't sense your presence anymore. And then also things like Windows Hello for Business and moving to that more passwordless environment where you can use biometrics that are locally stored on that device. So if a bad actor is trying to gain access to information, they would need the device and the biometrics stored locally on that device, which is more secure than just username and password. We think about mission critical applications, running those apps, Win32 apps in isolation, and also how we can continue to just evolve and innovate around, end-to-end security. So we have a new feature called Config Refresh that we'll talk about here in a minute, and just things that we're bringing into the ecosystem to really help protect endpoints from the chip all the way to the cloud. Also, we want to know that it's look, it's consistent. And we use the word kind of cost effective, right? As I mentioned a minute ago, you don't need to go out and acquire new tools to run Windows 11 in your environment. You can use the tools that you have today. And we really want to focus in on, increasing employee satisfaction. And we saw with our Forrester study a reduction, about an 80% reduction in incoming help desk tickets. And a lot of that was tied to, leveraging some of those features that are available in Windows 11, such as Windows Hello. I'll admit that I've been at Microsoft almost 4 years and I've never had to reset my password because I use my biometrics to log in and it has a better end user experience. We also talk about zero touch deployment. So if you're leveraging things like Intune and potentially looking at, zero touch deployment of a device through Windows Autopilot, sending that device directly to an end user and they can be up and running, and enjoy that amazing out of box experience of a brand new device. We also want to know that, hey, it scales, right? We're just bringing in more investment into the platform of how we scale Windows 11 from the chip all the way to the cloud. And then applications. And so I really just wanted to spend a minute because we do still hear from you, the customer, that application compatibility is still top of mind as one of the barriers on migrating from Windows 10 to 11. And so want to let you all know we do have currently we have a 99.7% app compatibility rate between Windows 10 and 11. But I wanted to let you know that app compatibility is by design with Windows 11. And so we have what's called our app promise. So we guarantee that if you have an application running on Windows 10 today, that it will run on Windows 11. If it doesn't, we have a program called App Assure, which actually runs through our Fast Track program. And I'll, with one caveat there is no minimum seat requirement to leverage the App Assure program. So this is available to customers with one employee or more. And so we guarantee that your applications are going to work. And if they don't, this team of engineers will get involved free of charge to help you remediate why those applications that are running on Windows 10 today are not performing on Windows 11. We also have what's called Microsoft Test Space, which is a cloud environment that customers and ISVs can use to go in and validate applications in the cloud in Azure before broadly deploying those applications into their environment. And so we really just want to let you guys know that, hey, look, we stand behind app compatibility. We understand the last time that we made a big change in our operating system, specifically Windows 7 to 10 was not necessarily the greatest experience from an app compatibility perspective. We actually still see Windows 7 today in use because of that. And so we really want you to know that, hey, we're standing by app compatibility, and it truly is by design. And so Windows 11 is a feature update or in-place upgrade to an eligible piece of hardware. And so we'll talk a little bit more about hardware selection criteria for the modern PC here in a minute. But again, we really just want to stress, our commitment to you, the customer, around app compatibility. So let's now shift to, AI and end user productivity. So we had our launch event last week on Thursday, where we did some announcements around some advancements we're making in the Windows 11 operating system from an AI perspective. We do know that 70% of employees surveyed said they would use AI on a daily basis to help lighten that workload. But we now have we're offering Copilot Windows. We announced this. We actually called it Windows Copilot back when we announced it at Build back late spring. But it's now called Copilot in Windows with Bing Chat Enterprise integration. And so this is a new feature. It's coming out depending on how quickly you're doing updates on your systems. If you have that little toggle switch that says, hey, you want to receive the latest features early, you may already see this landing in some of your operating systems, which is great. And it does have controls. So full transparency, it is a feature that can be turned off and managed at an IT level. We're also bringing in new AI-powered recommendations. So within File Explorer, leveraging AI, I actually logged into my File Explorer this morning and I had a team meeting and it actually brought up some documents that were referenced in a previous team meeting to say, hey, these are documents you might want to use later today in some of your upcoming calls. So offering you those AI recommendations in File Explorer is really a cool feature. And then, intelligent protection. We talked about things like Microsoft Defender for Smart Screen or enhanced phishing protection. Where we're leveraging all those security signals that we capture on a daily basis at Microsoft, trillions a year, and we're bringing those into the operating system, to really help, protect the end user against potentially, malicious intent of visiting a website and entering credentials. As we all know, the human element still is a main variable as we think about security and the security posture within our organization. Effortless meetings. I was actually talking with a counterpart about this earlier today, leveraging things like logging in and getting meeting summary notes and things where AI is coming into the operating system to really help improve that, hybrid work, hybrid meeting experience for our end users. And then ultimately accessibility. We want Windows 11 to be the most accessible operating system we've ever created. And so how can we bring in things like narrator support, live captioning, voice support, where we can really help make the operating system more inclusive for every type of user within our organization. So let's talk about Windows Copilot. We're going to watch this sizzle video here really quick. So that was our launch video from our event last week, where we kind of showcased some of the new features, that we're bringing into the Windows 11 operating system that are really focused around, increasing productivity and really AI enhanced experiences for our end users. And so we brought, we announced Copilot in Windows is becoming generally available as well. Ink from Anywhere, we saw some snippets there of a better paint, better snipping tools. We want to help have seamless work anywhere. I'll say one of my favorite features that we don't really show in videos is called seamless redocking. So I've got 2 external monitors with my device. If I undock, go work in the kitchen to grab a sandwich, come back to my desktop and plug my device back into the docking station, it actually remembers where all my windows were located across my external monitors and puts everything back to where it was, so I can resume productivity instantly. And again, we're bringing things like, 4K monitor support, better switching between ink and pen and keyboard and voice. We're also bringing smarter video conferencing. So if you have a device that supports Windows Studio effects for enhancement around, noise cancellation, better background blur, these things are starting to become available on devices that support NPU technology. And so we're just very excited about things we're bringing in, to really help support that hybrid worker to have a better meeting experience. And then, as I mentioned before, accessibility. How are we just leveraging AI really to help make the operating system, more user-friendly and more accessible for all types of users within our organization? So I wanted to spend a couple minutes now just kind of talking about Microsoft Copilot, which is really your everyday AI companion. We also announced last week that Microsoft 365 Copilot will be generally available November 1st to enterprise customers. So that tool is coming out as well. But when we think about Copilot, it really is Microsoft's solution for AI across all of our portfolio. And more specifically, what we're going to talk about today is really bringing AI and bringing that assistant into the actual operating system, so into Windows 11. And so Copilot in Windows, is free. There's no charge to this feature. And so, what can Copilot do? We saw a little bit of that in the Sizzle video a second ago, but again, we're talking about things like researching, learning, and analyzing text. I actually used it earlier today to take a web page, and I selected the text. And when I went to Copilot, it actually had my selected text in Copilot in Windows and said, "Hey, what do you want me to do with this?" And so I asked for a summary, and it gave me a nice summary from a full web page. You can tailor your settings. You can ask it to open an app. You can ask it to change your background color. You can, again, simplify access, right? You can start with creativity, help you remove writer's block. And then cast your screen. So there's a lot of things that we're doing from an investment perspective and bringing Copilot, into the actual Windows ecosystem. So when you think about Copilot in business use case scenarios, so if you have the right licensing, Bing Chat Enterprise, Microsoft or Windows Copilot does work with Windows Pro, and Microsoft 365 Business Standard or higher is when you get Bing Chat Enterprise included at no cost. And so Windows Copilot, if you're using that and you have Bing Chat Enterprise enabled, it will leverage Bing Chat Enterprise to give you that commercial data protection. If you don't have that, Copilot in Windows is available in Windows 11 Pro and Home as well, and also Enterprise. So it is, again, a free feature, but if you have Bing Chat Enterprise, that's where you're going to get that commercial data protection within the Copilot tool. And again, I'll stress, we did launch Copilot with controls, so this feature can be turned off at an IT management perspective. We also have announced that if you are currently on Windows 11 22H2 and you receive an update with Copilot, it will be off by default unless your organization enables it. And then we do launch Windows 11 23H2 later this fall. It will actually be on by default, but again, you can turn that feature off at an IT level. So I'm just going to spend a few minutes kind of a roundup on some of the new features that we launched last week. And then we'll kind of close out with why you really should start moving and planning to move to Windows 11 now. So we talked about Copilot in Windows with Bing Chat Enterprise. I briefly mentioned, AI-powered recommendations within File Explorer, the value that brings. Also, if you're on Intune today, we actually have a new feature called Config Refresh. So you can actually tell devices to automatically return to their desired configuration every 90 or 30 minutes. So this feature will help, prevent against misconfiguration, registry edits, or maybe some type of malicious software trying to go change some settings on the device. And so if that device is in Intune, you can actually have it go check and make sure it returns that device to its desired configuration, which again is just another advancement in security and how we're helping protect that Windows device ecosystem. Again, we talked about better search, narrator support, again, bringing AI for a more accessible operating system. Also presence sensing. So this is one that's actually become a pretty popular topic in talking with customers. If you're leveraging Windows Hello for Business, and as I mentioned earlier, it's a bad behavior that I've developed with working at home over the past few years, is really just leveraging presence sensing, to help eliminate that risk of an end user if they get up and away from their PC and forget to lock it, that it'll automatically lock that PC for that, and also continue advancements in partnership with our OEMs around adaptive dimming and different things like that to make sure that that confidential information that might be on a screen in more of a public place is not as accessible to view from a third party. If you're leveraging Windows 365, we launched Windows 365 Boot, so you can boot a PC directly into the Windows 365 environment. And then Windows Ink. So they actually talked about this at our launch event, making enhancements into Windows Ink. So it's called Windows Ink Anywhere, where you can literally ink, if you have a device that supports ink and pen, you can actually ink anywhere on the screen. So you could search with ink, potentially in a settings menu without typing. So again, just bringing a better experience and a better touch and ink and pen experience across our device ecosystem. So we talked a lot of features, and I know we just had 25 minutes today to kind of just talk about some of the new enhancements and things we're bringing around security, productivity, and AI into the Windows 11 ecosystem. And so as you think about purchasing hardware, it's very important to understand and make sure that you're buying the right device, whether it's the right design features for the end user and the right form factor, that you're purchasing the device that allows you to leverage things like secure core PCs to have the highest level of security at the core of a device, or purchasing devices that support Windows Hello for Business, face or fingerprint, so you can get that enhanced sign-on experience, and leverage those technologies to move to a passwordless environment. And when you think about performance, making sure you're getting the latest generation of Intel vPro, so you can get better all-day battery life, faster start time. And as we think about productivity, again, I was actually at an event last week where Intel mentioned that they did a survey and 80% of end users said, hey, they want a device with touch. And so, making sure you're getting devices that support a lot of these great new features, better quality microphones, better cameras, Wi-Fi 6E support. So that's something with Windows 11 as well. Windows 11 supports Wi-Fi 6E, and we're hearing from customers that they are seeing better bandwidth on Windows 11 devices versus Windows 10 that have that Wi-Fi 6E capability built in. So why now? We kind of touched a little bit on this, but just really want to close around, why you should consider moving to Windows 11 now. And so Gartner, in full transparency, when we launched Windows 11, actually came out and told customers not to move. But back in December, they actually did a reprint where they said, hey, now is the time for customers to start inserting Windows 11 22H2 into their annual update process and deploy it on new PCs. You can visit this link. It's called aka.ms move to Windows 11. And they really highlight 4 key features of why you should move. One is similarity. So as I mentioned earlier, Windows 11 is a feature update to Windows 10 and an eligible piece of hardware. And so as we talk about all these new investments and the continuous innovation we're bringing into the Windows 11 ecosystem, the operating systems are going to get more inherently different. We've actually also come out and said Windows 10 22H2 is the last version of Windows 10, and we're not going to bring in new features to that operating system. We're only going to bring monthly security updates. And so there is still that level of familiarity between the two. It also gives you still 2 more years of runway. We're not going to say you're not going to encounter any issues. And we talked about app compatibility, and we're here to help you on your journey when you're migrating, from Windows 10 to 11. Third is around performance. So you're going to hear from Intel and Lenovo here in a minute, but we've made investments in the Windows scheduler to take advantage of some of the new silicon out there in the market. Specifically with Intel 12th generation or newer, they launched a new hybrid architecture where they have performance and efficiency cores. And so we've actually made investments in the Windows 11 scheduler to take advantage of that thread director. So you can get better performance and better ROI on your investment in newer silicon. And we didn't make those investments into the Windows 10 platform. And I've actually heard from customers who have taken this information and gone back and actually taken a 12th or 13th gen device from 10 to 11, and they've actually reported back that there's noticeable improvement both from an IT and end user perspective with that device running Windows 11. And lastly, probably our favorite one is that Windows 11 22H2 is a stable operating system. And so to kind of close it out before we hand it over to Rachel, just again wanted to just be very clear here around also understanding where you're at in your Windows 10 lifecycle moments. So we do know that Windows 10 end of support is October 14th, 2025, but that is just for Windows 10 22H2. So there are versions of Windows 10 that will be going end of support prior to that. One of the most second popular versions of Windows 10 in use today is actually Windows 10 21H2, which goes end of support June 11th of next year. And so, we really want to make sure that you guys understand where you're at in your Windows 10 journey and what impact that might have in your organization, and how you can strategically look at taking those eligible pieces of hardware and moving them over to Windows 11, and to really set your organization up, to really have better security, better end user productivity, and making sure that you're prepping and preparing yourself, for this next generation of AI and all these new features that are coming out from an AI perspective. And so with that, I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for 25 minutes here today to just kind of talk about Windows 11 and the enhancements and investments we're making around security and end user productivity and AI. And I will now hand it over to Rachel.
Thank you, Rob. Okay, I'm going to try and take over really quick.
All right, stop sharing.
Let me know and you guys can see. Is my presentation up? Get a yes or a no. I can never see anyone. Okay, perfect. Thanks, Rob. Hi guys, my name is Rachel Munley. I work at Intel on the Lenovo account team, so I manage all of our SMB and channel business for North America. My goal today is to spend about 25 minutes talking with all of you about Intel's new 13th gen processors, which Rob gave a really good teaser for some of you on this. But the whole idea is why it'll actually help solve some of the largest business challenges customers are seeing in 2023 and into next year, because we're already in the end of September. It's crazy. So I will not have time to do a deep dive, but I want you guys to walk away with an understanding of these new Lenovo products that are in the channel, in market today, that are going to solve a lot of these issues you're facing. And also, Rob mentioned that they had some Microsoft announcements last week, and we actually had a large event last week that's called Intel Innovation. And it's more so targeted at developers, so it's a little bit more technical, but it was where our CEO, Pat Gelsinger, and our CTO, Greg Lavender, they basically talked about this new world, right? So it's all around where artificial intelligence represents this generational shift in all of computing. And they just talked about how we're entering this new world that's going to give rise to a new era of economic expansion, and it's going to be enabled by sustainable, open, and secure computing. And they called it Siliconomy. So I'm not going to talk through Siliconomy, but this presentation sets the foundation for a lot of what Pat talked about last week. So if you guys didn't watch it live, I do recommend catching the replays if you didn't see it. They actually streamed it, I think, on X, which was formerly Twitter, and there's a lot of articles on it, but there were some really interesting business issues we showed on there and just all of the concepts. So I'd encourage you guys to watch that if you haven't. Okay, so this year, customers, and hopefully everyone can relate to this, which isn't great, but we're facing several challenges that you guys must address. So the biggest challenge is economic uncertainty. And one of the things is a natural reaction is, okay, we need to scale back, but it's important to continue to invest wisely to remain competitive and be prepared when growth returns. So I'll talk a little bit about economic uncertainty, what our solution to that is. Security is no surprise, but Rob talked a little bit about this, and I'll talk about some of the complementary solutions that we have with both Intel and Lenovo to help elevate the security you would have with Windows 11 and an Intel device on Lenovo, because attacks grow more sophisticated every single year. So you can't really rely on old security technology, hardware, software to protect against emerging threats that are happening. The third big challenge is sustainability. So there's this expectation for that the public expects for companies to take steps right now today, even though we're going through this time of economic uncertainty, to reduce our impact on the environment. So all these, Intel and Lenovo work together to address all of these issues, and you'll see a lot of these slides that shows how we overlay together. Okay, so economic uncertainty. The first thought is, okay, we need to reduce spending until things stabilize. The challenge, though, with that is that some investments can really increase worker productivity. So it's all around, how do we make people more productive? How do we make the business more competitive now, while also better positioning the business for growth when the economy turns around? So the whole question is, well, how can companies help their employees do more with less? How do we eliminate distractions that reduce productivity? Rob talked about that. In this new world of work from home, a lot of people in different environments, there can be some more distractions, and our phones cause so many distractions. But one of the questions is, how can we leverage AI to automate tasks? That's one element. And Rob talked about it with Copilot, right? It's almost this personal assistant that can help. And I'll talk a little bit about the hardware that'll enable some of these for a better experience, because AI is it's kind of a new buzzword, but it's been around for decades. And our CEO talked about that a little bit at Innovation, that it's gotten a lot of traction, partly because like ChatGPT has made it a lot more popular. But AI has been around for a long time, but now it's coming more to use cases that we can understand, tangibly use, and there is excellent hardware and software to take advantage. So the first one I'll talk about, and I was glad that Rob talked about our hybrid CPU architecture, but we launched our 13th gen processors, which are called Raptor Lake. We launched those back in March, and Lenovo Think PCs with 13th gen Intel Core processors, it's all designed around increasing productivity. So they feature this hybrid CPU architecture. And Rob had kind of mentioned this, this didn't start with this generation. We started a hybrid CPU architecture with 12th gen. And the whole idea is that they have two types of cores. We have performance cores to help get tasks done quickly, which makes sense, performance for performing something quickly. And we have efficiency cores, or E cores, P cores and E cores, for handling background tasks with low power, any sort of patch that's maybe running. So it basically allows security tasks to run in the background while enabling just an excellent performance on foreground employee tasks. And why this is important is I think we need to take note that Intel and Lenovo and Microsoft, we don't sit still when the world changes. So as Microsoft talked about everything they were doing for Windows 11 to really enhance the new way that we work, that's exactly what the hybrid CPU architecture is. We are now hybrid workers, right? So many people used to go into the office every day, and that's just not the way we work anymore. And the way we leverage our PCs has changed dramatically. I used to I lived in Portland, Oregon before the pandemic. And I was in the office every single day. And a lot of the times I used my PC in a certain way. I used Outlook, and I used, Excel and PowerPoint and all the other from the Windows suite, but not the way I use it now. I certainly didn't use Microsoft Teams as much, and I live on Microsoft Teams now, right? And I feel like I demand a lot more of my PC because of this virtual world and video conferencing. We're not going into a room and all meeting the same. We're all on our laptops. And so we need a type of architecture that's designed to run things in the background and also leverage and be more efficient with anything in the foreground so it doesn't slow us down. But productivity isn't just about raw CPU performance. I can always talk about that, and I will talk a little bit more about how much better it's gotten. But collaboration is another thing that is just a key element of productivity. So we've integrated our latest connectivity solutions, such as Wi-Fi 6E. I'll talk a little bit more about that, Thunderbolt 4, our Bluetooth audio, to make sure that everyone can connect to the people and devices so they can get their work done really efficiently. Because it comes down to efficiency and productivity to really get the best bang for your buck. And then again, the buzzword, right? So artificial intelligence. It's poised to transform how we work. A lot of people are fearful that it's just going to take over a lot of jobs, which it may displace some, but those that can figure out how to leverage AI and to make themselves more productive and their businesses more successful are going to be the ones that really succeed here. And Intel has integrated AI accelerators so that a lot of the software can implement more AI features without slowing down the overall system. So I won't get into all the different CPUs, GPUs, NPUs that talk through that because we don't have time for it, but it essentially is going to allow employees to stay on task and just get things done faster. So you can see the impact of the architectural changes in this benchmark data. So I have two things side by side. We always show gen-on-gen performance. We may stop doing that because the likelihood that people refresh after 1 year is usually pretty unlikely. We would all love it. But you can still see up to 13% gains from last 12th gen to 13th generation. But we had that hybrid architecture already in place. Where you see the really big noticeable boost is over a 3-year-old PC. So if you upgraded a PC or refreshed back in 2020, so the beginning of the pandemic through September, you are one of these people that you can see up to a 61% gain. And that's on the bottom, you can see all the benchmark data that we use. These are different benchmark sources. And the reason why we use these, and if anyone shows you benchmark data, you should ask what they're measuring. It's because they measure these applications that you see on the bottom, which are the most commonly used business applications for the workforce. So a 61% advantage is something that it's a boost that we would notice, right? And that's 3 years old. So anything pre-pandemic is going to be an even bigger increase on all of that. Okay, so this slide, again, I won't go through all the details of it, But it's all about how Lenovo and Intel, we're trying to build a better user experience. And everything we do, our engineers talk with Lenovo's engineers, and we make sure that we have the best experience. And so on the top, you can see what's built into Lenovo's hardware and the overall device that you would buy. And underneath it is the Intel technology that can enable a better experience with what they've created. So when we look at the user experience, and all of these came around because we're using a lot more video calls, right? And we're using our PCs a lot more. So Lenovo designs high-res displays into their Think PCs, but a lot of times video conferencing software, it'll transmit at 1080p or 720p, and it's all around conserving bandwidth. But with AI, with our artificial intelligence accelerators that are built into 13th Gen Intel Core, video conference software can use AI to enhance the resolution of the video. So it can take advantage of the high-res screen that costs a little bit more money, and it gives all of us a better quality video. And what does that mean? It means less eye strain, because we're all in video calls so much and we're all looking at our PC. So the less eye strain, the better experience for all of us, for the user. The next one, Lenovo has these high resolution webcams, which are excellent, but sometimes you don't necessarily want everything on camera. So it's amazing that they have a little privacy shutter that you can just flip across, and you can make sure that it's not going to capture anything that you don't want. And what's great about the high-res webcam is it can capture fine details, which is excellent because it makes it really realistic and you can get immersed when you're having a good business meeting. But sometimes you don't really want your background in high resolution, since a lot of us are working from home or even in the office, right? It can be distracting with people walking around. And so video conferencing software can use AI to intelligently blur the background. So we're kind of used to that because I think we've been using it for a couple of years, but that's AI at work, right? It can help remove distractions and privacy concerns by just being smart enough to know that I should be the one in focus and everything behind me blurred. The next one is audio, right? So very similar challenges you can face with distractions around, let's say you're working in a coffee shop or you're traveling on an airplane or even in the office, right? Or at home, right? Whatever you want to pick on, a barking dog or a blender in a coffee machine. We have these amazing array of microphones that are built in. So we have, a better experience from Lenovo's PC, but Intel's built-in AI, it basically works with the array of microphones, and it intelligently removes any of the background noise, but it can still preserve my user's voice. So then anything that could be distracting, you can remove that. And again, that's AI at work that we've kind of become accustomed to if you've seen some of these. Okay. So same thing with this. I won't cover all of these, but as I mentioned, productivity, it's not just about CPU performance. If you can't connect, then you can't collaborate, and you kind of can't get anything done, especially in 2023, if you can't connect with your other employees and coworkers and customers, vendors, etc. So all of the 2023 Lenovo Think devices with Intel 13th Gen, they have all of the latest connectivity solutions, especially if they're powered with Intel vPro, and they can help us effectively collaborate wherever we are. So the first one that I think is notable and just a great boost is Wi-Fi 6E, or what you see in parentheses, gigabit plus Wi-Fi. So it's all about, it offers faster speeds, better security. So it has a new 6 gigahertz band that gives businesses 7 additional gigabit speed wireless channels. So it has less network congestion, better reliability. Visually, I was down in Costa Rica and I was talking to some of their Lenovo's team down there. They have an extended channel team down there, and I was training them on this, and we were joking about how bad the traffic is, because I've lived in Chicago, I lived in Portland, California, New York City. I even lived in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and we were kind of having a debate on which place had the worst traffic. And I said it was Sao Paulo, Brazil, and they were convinced that Costa Rica, they had really bad traffic. And so the visual I gave them is, imagine that you're on a highway at a super, super congested with cars, and suddenly 7 additional lanes open up. The amount of congestion that you're now going to avoid with people being able to open up, that's what happens here, right? So you now have better reliability on when you're going to get home because you don't have to worry about sitting in traffic because there's 7 more lanes to take advantage of. That's what you get here. On the next one you see here, it talks about Intel Connectivity Performance Suite. It also, not only are we adding more lanes, but it improves the Wi-Fi experience that it can prioritize traffic. So it can help ensure smooth video conferencing that we're always doing, even if you're downloading some large file at the same time. It also monitors access points. So it can automatically switch to the access point that's going to deliver the best experience for you. And so I also think about that as, if you've driven someplace and people don't know how to merge onto the highway, it's just smart, basically, in that same way where it's making sure that it prioritizes traffic to make sure everyone's changing lanes at the right speed, slowing down and everything, so no one's slowed down. That's essentially what they do for your connectivity experience. And then it's funny, Rob hit on this too, because this has become a problem, I think, is people walk away. And so we forget about the security aspect. So there's also a Wi-Fi proximity sensing that we have. The Lenovo Think notebooks include this Intel 5G solution. And so it can basically say, it can basically pick up on any of the cellular networks and all of that. And then the next part is the Wi-Fi proximity sensing. So it uses these Wi-Fi 6 radios, and it's kind of like a radar system that it doesn't necessarily like look at me. So there's sometimes cameras that use the face to see if they move. This uses different radar systems to see, okay, someone's in front of the PC and they've actually walked away, so we can lock down the PC. And it doesn't, since it's just proximity, it doesn't capture any user identifiable data. That could be a privacy concern. So whether the lid is open or closed, it can help you out with that. Okay, let's go to the next one. Hopefully everyone is familiar with Intel Evo. I'll take just a minute to walk through it. So Intel Evo, I think if anyone's been in the industry and remembers Ultrabook, we had these really, really thick laptops that were really thick. They were heavy. They took 5 minutes to turn on because they all had a hard disk drive in them. And Intel really transformed the industry with Ultrabook. So consumers could get a PC that was something they wanted to use. I would say we took it to the absolute next step with Evo, and we took it to the next level where we said customers want to be consumers, business users alike. They want an excellent experience. So many people talked about the PC being dead and all we really need are our phones because this is what we use every day. And most of us can't live without our phones, but the research that we did said that people want their PC. They want it to be productive. They want it to be creative. How can they create on it? Because their phones are really a distraction and they go to their PC to get things done, but they need it to act the way a phone does. And so what we got from them was they want consistent responsiveness across the most common tasks that they have. They want it to wake instantly in less than a second. They want it to last for over 9.5 hours. And not just when, you test something in a lab and all of your brightness is turned down and you're using one application. What's a real world application where we have several things running at once? And does our battery really take us through the full day? And then eventually when it runs out of battery, can you get a fast enough charge to get 4 hours of battery in less than 30 minutes? So we have like very, very, very stringent testing, which is not only key performance indicators like we looked at, but it's also key experience indicators. And if something is given the green light and checked and said that it is Evo, it is going to be the most premium experience that you can get because it cannot be branded Evo unless it passes all of the stringent rules. So one thing that was exciting about it is every year we come out, Evo's been around for years and we always add new enhancements to it. This year, one thing that was exciting is Intel Unison was offered. And the whole idea is that, look, we still use our phones regardless, right? We use both for business. Both are critical to get our work done. But when can we have them talk together? So basically, Intel Unison says you can receive calls, notifications, text messages, file transfers, whether it's an iOS Apple phone, whether it's an Android phone, you can get any of those on your 13th gen device with Windows 11. So it's a great update that you can start to use across both devices, especially with the new Windows 11 platform and our new processors. Okay, let's take just a couple minutes to talk about security. So a lot of people, and even Rob, which I appreciate, mentioned vPro, but he said something that I loved, because a lot of people think about vPro as AMT, or our active management technology, and you can remotely manage something out of band. But it's greater than the sum of its parts, because vPro is not just AMT. Rob kind of referenced it, is you are guaranteed to get a certain level of parts and experience. If something is Intel vPro, it has to have Intel Wi-Fi 6E. It has to have the manageability firmware, Intel Ethernet, Intel integrated graphics, Thunderbolt 4. All of those have to go on that package, because you can have a manufacturer that can just kind of put whatever pieces they want on it, but if it's Intel vPro, it has to have these. And when you have all of these, you get a lot of the experiences I mentioned before, like Wi-Fi 6E. But so you get that professional grade performance, but you also get the Intel Hardware Shield, which I'll talk a little bit about, which is the multi-layer security features. You also get AMT for remote management, and you also get a stable platform with SIP, because you know that we're not going to change anything in a certain amount of time. So this, not to scare anyone, but I always think statistics, and Rob had a ton of them, are really interesting on just what's happening in the new world. And so your business and your data are among the most targeted for cyber attacks. Are you prepared for it? What kind of device are you using now? So 61% of SMBs were the target of a cyber attack in 2021. So let that sit in. Over half of SMBs were the target. And the way that we look at that is about under 1,000, so 1 to 999. 82% of ransomware attacks in 2021 were against companies fewer than 1,000 employees. 37% of that total had fewer than 100 employees. I always think there was that like Target breach years ago, that a lot of the cyber attacks are going to go after these big corporations and big companies, but some of the most vulnerable are these small and medium businesses. And so it's very costly when this happens. 60% of small businesses go out of business within 6 months after a cyber attack. Businesses with less than 500 employees had an average data breach that cost $2.98 million, which is up an increase of almost over like 25% from 2020. A lot of this, we can attribute this to the new work from home, just how advanced that they've gotten in their attacks. And 3 out of 4 small businesses say that they don't have the personnel to address IT security. So what are we doing about that, right? We need to think about what are the devices, what's the hardware, and what's the software that we're arming our employees with to make sure that they're safe. And as I mentioned, we talked about that as well. Just hybrid work is here to stay, but it also, there's a lot of benefits with that, but it gives attackers new opportunities to breach your business. So it just opens the door to greater threats. Rob talked a little bit about like passwords, but they can use biometrics, which is huge, because weak passwords are a huge contributor to opening the door to big risks. Phishing schemes, we have that all the time at our company. We get sent a fake phishing thing to see if we click on it, and then you have to take a training about it. Not that it's ever happened to me. So you just have to really think about it. And this slide, I like it because it shows the PC in the layers that it is. And so you need to make sure that you don't just have antivirus software. It's not enough. You need to adopt an end-to-end security strategy to build your defenses. So you start with something like Windows 11, and then you look at how you can adopt a new security approach to reduce the attack surface. And when you think about the attack surface, look at all the surfaces that have a little lock next to them. We need to protect against attacks, detect when they happen, and recover after an attack if it happens to even go wrong. And so these are all the surfaces. This is the attack surface that we need to think about. And this next slide, I mean, I don't know if there's a more compelling argument for getting an Intel vPro, but this one at the bottom, there is a 70% attack surface reduction versus a 4-year-old device. So when you have an Intel 13th Gen vPro device, you get a 70% attack surface reduction. So if you don't have the personnel to pay to look at like IT and security, this alone is going to help. And the other one you see 24%, we have a 24% increase versus competitive x86 platform. So against AMD, ours is going to be 24% more out of the box. And that's just our normal CPU. That's not even with vPro. When you have vPro, it increases tremendously. So let me really quick go through, I'll do a couple more slides. So we talked through just how the cyber threats are evolving, but how Intel and Lenovo have really adapted. And we also heard about how the application side and the operating system with Windows 11, they have really been able to look at a lot of the existing threats with ransomware and cryptojacking. Some of the emerging threats that are going to impact the BIOS, the firmware, the CPU hardware, how are you protected? How are you protecting yourself against a supply chain corruption? So one of the things that has become one of the top concerns is, how am I protecting my supply chain? You know, you think about the times during COVID when there were just boats sitting at the dock and they didn't have a driver because no one was employed to drive one thing to the next. But our supply chain is complex. All of the OEMs are. And so you can see on this slide, Lenovo and Intel want to help protect throughout the entire PC lifecycle from when we are building it. Everything in black you see is what Lenovo offers for each stage. Blue underneath it is what Intel complements it with. And the one I want to focus on is Intel Transparent Supply Chain. So protecting the supply chain has become one of the top security concerns. And so what Intel Transparent Supply Chain, or TSC, does is it essentially takes a fingerprint of the product that's been built. And it says, okay, this product is uniquely a Lenovo ThinkPad, and these are all the, this is the CPU in it, this is the Wi-Fi card in it, this is every single component in this product, the firmware, the hardware, everything. And then once it gets to the end destination, which it passes a lot of hands, right? You're going to go from on a boat, you're going to, or maybe go on a plane, planes, trains, and automobiles, you're going to go through customs. So many hands are going to touch this distribution. Maybe it goes through a channel partner, et cetera, until it gets to the end user, to you guys. So once it gets there, then you can validate and say, has anything happened? One, did I get what I ordered? Because sometimes mistakes happen. Or did something nefarious, and did someone actually tamper with my product during transit? Did they take out a certain component like an SSD or an expensive CPU and replace it with something cheap? Or did they put on some sort of malware that's going to infect the rest of my fleet? So that gives you peace of mind to do it. And what's great about it is this is an Intel third-party thing that we offer. Lenovo is the only OEM that takes advantage of this. Dell does not take advantage of this. HP does not take advantage of it. And a lot of it, I think, comes down to Lenovo wants to be very transparent. I think to build trust with customers, you need to be as transparent as possible about how you operate. And so they just are open kimono. You can check through all of this, and we have a third party that will validate it for you. So I won't go through all of this, but this is basically just, we combine what Intel has with Lenovo's ThinkShield, and you have the most, secure PC experience. So last thing, I won't hit on all these, it's just sustainability. We have done tremendous things to make sure that we have a sustainable offering. So manufacturing accounts for most of the emissions during the PC life cycle. Any reductions here will have the biggest impact. Intel and Lenovo are working together to help reduce the entire manufacturing footprint. We've adjusted our design methodologies on how we can reduce, reuse, repair, recycle, all of those. You can see some of the recycled material that we started to use. Lenovo used 13.5 million kilograms of recycled plastic in PC. They have a goal of using 90% recycled plastic by 2026. So that's been incredible. Same with just the water and the renewable energy and resources. This is one thing that you guys would probably see. So you have to think about when you get sent something, like this impacts customers directly, the packaging material. What are you going to do when you have it? You have to dispose of the packaging material. We use way less material. It's plastic free, it's recyclable, it's biodegradable. They eliminated 54 tons of packing tape alone in this. So we've really become just mindful of how we can become more energy efficient and sustainable through the entire life cycle. So when you put it together, we have the most secure devices with vPro, the most user-friendly and innovative with Evo. Some products are both Evo and vPro. So you can go down from our like good, better, best offerings, and this is the Lenovo portfolio. And same thing with this, right? You can choose the right portfolio based on your needs, and all of them hit on all of the challenges we're facing today. So I am out of time. We have about 5 minutes left for questions, so I'll pause and see if anyone has any questions that came up. See some in the chat. Let's see.
No, I don't see any questions in the chat, but
Oh, maybe just comments. Okay.
feel free to raise your hand, come off mute. Any questions? If not, I think we'll kick it back over to Jessica. Or
Yeah. If there's no questions, I just wanted to say thank you, Rob, Rachel, amazing job. And also to everyone else who joined today, thank you for taking the time to listen. If you have any other questions or would like to discuss further, please reach out to your CDW account rep. Also, please keep an eye on your inbox because there's going to be an email coming to you, including more info on our prize draws. We've got 4 $500 gift cards to give away. So we'll be contacting the winners via email. There'll be more info in the email coming to you. Yeah, and with that, thank you all again. And I guess we can end it here, and I'll have a great rest of our day.
Thanks, you guys too.
right,
Thanks for
thanks,
your
everyone.
time. Bye.
Thank you.